Welcome to Faust, Unraveling the Great Enigma. Today's episode is entitled Climbing the Mountain Slowly. I want to share a conversation that has changed the way I understand Goethe's Faust. My friend Eglund, speaking from Germany, offered insights that made this work come alive for me. Not as an academic text, but as a human struggle. If you have ever found Faust distant or difficult, this episode is for you. When we ask why Goethe wrote Faust, we must begin with who he was. He was not poor. He did not struggle financially. He grew up secure, educated, and intellectually gifted. He lived through revolutions: the American War of Independence, the French Revolution, and the Napoleonic upheaval. Yet he himself was stable, and perhaps that stability created a distance. Eglund suggested something striking. Goethe wrote from the mind until life broke his heart.
It was after the death of Schiller, who was a young and very, very talented poet with a huge success in the audience of common people. They loved Schiller, as they did in Scotland with Robert Burns or with Coleridge in England. But he died very young from tuberculosis, and Goethe never got over this loss in his life. And then he started to work on Faust. So Faust is kind of a trial to understand the loss and get on with it, to survive in a way. That is interesting because suddenly he suffered in his life. It was not a kind of economic suffer, it was an emotional thing. It was the biggest crisis in his life, which led to Faust. Goethe was many years older than Schiller, and he was a protege. He protected Schiller, he brought him into the business, and they became friends in Weimar. But Schiller died very soon and very young. That was really a loss that Goethe never overcame. Not really. For me, in his biography, there is a sharp break after the death of Schiller, and he retreated to his house, and he didn't want to see people anymore and just worked on his Faust. Goethe was never poor. He never tasted poverty. And that is, for an artist, a writer, might be a problem, because you write from a standpoint of economic stability. Then there's something lacking in your art, something which is touching people's heart, and not only the brain and reason. I think that the feeling of loss and the pain, that was the moment when Goethe turned into really a giant. That's what we see in Faust, and that's the eternal quality of Faust.
Goethe did not write Faust from comfort. He wrote it from loss. Perhaps suffering gave him access to something that pure intellect could not reach. Pain does not automatically create wisdom, but it can deepen perception. And from that depth, Faust grew. Eglund described reading Faust as climbing a mountain. You cannot rush it. If you hurry, you will miss everything. It is not a novel to consume. It is a summit to approach slowly.
You cannot hurry to read Faust. It is impossible to read it like everyday novel. You have to take a lot of time. It's an old world, back to the Middle Ages and to the old legends that we have. The first version of Faust came from 16th century, from Christopher Marlowe, an English poet. So it has a very long tradition in European culture. Only to compare with the Holy Grail, which is very similar. Faust saga is the Holy Grail saga. King Arthur and his Round Table Knights. They come from very old time, and Goethe took it, shaped it in a new way, and is presenting a variety of ideas that you have to read every line and to take it in and to think about it and let it work inside of you. So it's actually not that I'm reading Faust. Faust is doing something with me. That's an adventure. I did not so often find literature which had this deep impact on me. And maybe other people too, because there must be a reason that people still read and still talk about Faust and find themselves in this very, very old story.
There is a moment early in Faust that reveals this depth. Faust opens the Bible. He reads, "In the beginning was the Word." But he hesitates. Is it the Word? Is it the thought? Is it the power? And finally he writes, "In the beginning was the act."
It shows in these lines from the beginning that he doesn't make any compromise for passion or the gusto of his audience. To go back to the very beginning of the Bible and to say it was not the word, it was the act, that means that everybody can act. And that's a tremendous change in how to see the world and how to be a human being in the world. And this way to go on without compromise, this for me, it's really convincing in the Faust. It was not the love of his readers or to be famous, because he was already very famous when he wrote the Faust. So it was not the fame. He was really aiming at what kind of wisdom do I need as Goethe, as Faust, to be satisfied with a chaotic life, with a warlike life, with a life of a lot of disaster, a lot of loss. This is really a great undertaking, great adventure. And it's reading like that because he's using all the old legends from the classic Greek up to 16th century and further on. Is it worth to be thought about? Is it worth to deal with it? Or is it just rubbish and has no value? And after the second part of Faust, when it was published, he very soon died. He became very old, more than 80 years. But then he was at the end. He was written empty, I would say. Everything, his whole legacy, is in the Faust. From the very beginning of Faust Part 1 is a very good description what Goethe is talking about, or what is he searching for. Because you can say he is Faust. He searched all his life, like Faust does in this long ballad, typical for that what's going on in Faust, matching in a way. It's in the study of Faust, and he's opening the Bible and says, geschrieben steht, im Anfang war das Wort. Hier stock ich schon. Wer hilft mir weiter fort? Ich kann das Wort so hoch unmöglich schätzen. Ich muss es anders übersetzen. Wenn ich vom Geiste recht erleuchtet bin, geschrieben steht, im Anfang war der Sinn. Bedenke wohl die erste Zeile, dass deine Feder sich nicht übereile. Ist es der Sinn, der alles wirkt und schafft? Es sollte stehen, im Anfang war die Kraft. Doch, auch indem ich dieses niederschreibe, schon warnt mich was, dass ich dabei nicht bleibe. Mir hilft der Geist, auf einmal sehe ich Rat und schreib getrost, im Anfang war die Tat.
And in English it reads, "'Tis written, in the beginning was the Word, Here I am balked. Who now can help afford? The word? Impossible so high to rate it, and otherwise must I translate it. If by the Spirit I am truly taught, then thus, in the beginning was the thought. This first line let me weigh completely, lest my impatient pen proceed too fleetly. It is the thought which works, creates, indeed. In the beginning was the power, I read. Yet as I write, a warning is suggested that I the sense may not have fairly tested. The Spirit aids me. Now I see the light. In the beginning was the act. I write. Not word, not theory, not abstraction. Action, striving, movement. Faust is restless, searching, unsatisfied. But he acts. And perhaps that is why he still speaks to us today. We too live in instability, rapid change, uncertainty, chaos. Goethe lived in revolution. We live in technological revolution. Perhaps Faust endures because it does not offer comfort. It asks, what do you do with your life? What do you strive for? What do you risk?
It's a source of wisdom. But this wisdom is coming from people acting as people. Faust and Mephisto and all the other characters, they are really living because they talk to each other, they do something. Reading Faust is just like climbing a mountain slowly because you want to reach the summit. Never hurry. That's why we are still at the beginning, at the base of this mountain. Faust is something like the Everest of literature.
We are still at base camp. We are not rushing to the summit. We are reading slowly, listening carefully, allowing this work to shape us. Perhaps because the act, the very first act, is this: to remain curious, to remain open, to continue climbing. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, dear listeners, may we ascend together. This is Rebecca Budd, and this is Faust, Unraveling the Great Enigma.